In August, members of the Green Party of England and Wales will vote on a number of available positions within the party, including a new leadership team. I sat down recently with Alex Mace to chat about his campaign for the deputy leadership position. This is what he had to say. Hello, so I am joined by deputy leadership hopeful for the Green Party elections upcoming in August, Alex Mace. Hi, Alex. How are you doing today?
Hi, Callum. I'm good, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's been really, really great that we've been able to get all nine of you to come along and sit down for an interview with us. So, yeah, we're really appreciative of that just to start with. So, thank you very much for that. Just before we begin, we'll get into the sort of grit of things in a moment. Tell everyone about you. Who are you outside of the Green Party? You know, what do you like to do, and what makes you tick?
So I'm Alex Mace. I'll give you my Green Party stuff first, and I'll do the rest. So I'm a city councillor here in Worcester. I'm co-leader of the Green Group on the city council. We are the second biggest group on the council. In terms of so I have my day job. Is I am the chief technology officer for a small company making software for pubs and restaurants. That keeps me pretty busy most of the time. I also live in Worcester here with my family, so that's my wife and my two children. In terms of what I like to do in my spare time, I mean a lot of my spare time working full time and being a city councillor is doing Green Party stuff, if I'm honest. But aside from that, I like to watch films, read books. I've just started watching Murderbot on Apple TV Plus, which is very good. It's very
Okay.
very funny, short to watch. So I'd recommend that if anybody wants to watch it. Although the title probably sounds worse than it is, but it's a quite funny program.
Brilliant. So co-leader of the Green Group on the council, then how's that for you?
It's been an interesting adjustment. So I became co-leader after the elections in May.
Hmm.
Um, because our previous leadership, who'd done a very good job, have got elected to the county council, and fairly felt that they didn't have time to dedicate to doing both jobs well. So, yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, we have as the second biggest group on the council, Labour have one short of a majority. We have to work quite closely with them. It's a bit of it can be a bit of a challenge in that they don't like it when we hold them to account over some of the things the Labour government are doing.
Yeah.
But we'll try and do that in a respectful manner. And I think my biggest surprise was the surprise on their faces when in my first meeting as co-leader we went in and I opened with, "What can we do to help you?" Because in the end, we're in the committee system. We have to work well together. I'm not interested in springing surprises on them or anything. So I'll be
Mhm.
clear about where we're going to differ on policy and hold them to account. But in the end, we want to deliver what's the best for our residents. So we'll
Yeah.
do our best to
And
work together.
and that's it. You want a council that's working for the local people, and if that means working together with people, then it's better that than oppose just for the sake of opposition. So,
Yeah,
cards completely on the table. I'm a member of the party, and I haven't yet decided who I'm going to vote for in the deputy leadership race.
excellent.
So, with that in mind, why should I vote for you?
So, I mean, the reason I think I'm standing and you should vote for me is that in my announcement video I talked about this idea of radical hope. That I think everybody talks about like hope can win and all that kind of stuff. But I think in the face of things like war in Europe and the success of reform and heat waves and flooding and all this kind of stuff, it's very easy to end up feeling a lot of despair. And I think we are the party that tells a positive story that can make a difference.
Mhm.
And I think people that really does appeal to lots of voters. So we have to keep on being positive and being bright and telling people we can do this, we can make a difference, we can solve the climate emergency, and that's what I'm bringing is positive energy to say we can actually do this. We're very keen in Worcester to win an MP for Worcester for the Green Party in the next general election.
Mhm.
We only got 10% of the vote this time around, but we absolutely can deliver that. And you can look at the various stats we've got and take we're going to do it. and that positive energy brings people along. So it's because people want to get involved in positive stories. So
Yeah.
that's why.
In your little blurb on the Green Party website for the the statements that you've all put together for the elections, you mentioned radical hope. You describe yourself as radical.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that when you use that term?
Uh, well, it's actually it's more of the when I was younger, people used to say to me, "Oh, you should get involved in politics or whatever." And I always used to say to people, "Oh, I don't think that because people would think I'm too radical." But really, the things that I'm radical about are things like I think everyone having a secure, safe, and warm home is a human right.
Yeah.
We everyone deserves to have somewhere they feel safe and they can call their own. Um, and in a world where we don't build enough social housing, where a lot of our social housing has been purchased through right to buy, and
Mhm.
then now ended up in the hands of private landlords, the that's very difficult to change. Because people have rightly become landlords because the government have encouraged them to do that, and changing that is we're gonna make some people very angry. But that's why I look at myself as a radical, because I think we need to do that. People need those homes. We can't, and also we shouldn't be leaving social housing just to be for the worst off in society. We talk a lot about in this country about how people who are leaving school and leaving university, how are they ever going to afford a house? I don't think they necessarily need to buy a house. We need to have provision of social housing controlled by councils that is available for them to use. And for a lot of people, that is radical. But even though it's perfectly normal policy in a lot of European countries.
Do you think that? Well, what do you think it says about society where believing that everyone has a right to a house, for example, can be seen as a radical policy?
I mean, I think I don't necessarily think it's a comment on society that can be seen as radical. I think there's a lot of our politicians who would see that as radical, who'd say, "Oh, you can't simply do that. Nobody will want to work if they've got a safe and secure home." And I think
Mm,
that's underselling the idea that people actually like solving problems and they like helping others, and they like a lot of people like doing work. Not everyone does, but you also don't have value if you work. And most people, I think, would agree with the idea that people should have a home, and they
mhm.
should have work that they enjoy, and they should be treated with dignity. There are, but it's just the clarion call of voices who say, "Well, my pie's not big enough." Who think that that's radical, but
Yeah.
most people do agree with it.
Moving on to some of the more sort of technical sides of things in terms of how the Green Party operates. Zach Polanski is obviously standing for the leadership on his own ticket at the moment, and Ellie Chowns and Adrian Ramsey are standing on a co-ticket for the leadership as well. Adrian Ramsey, obviously, already co-leader with
Mm-hmm,
Caledania. Because of the way, I know you know this, but those watching might not, because of the way that things work internally within the party, there's always three leadership positions available to win. So it'll either be two co-leaders and a deputy, or one leader and two deputies.
mm-hmm,
If it's the latter, and Zach were to be elected, and you then won. And were elected as deputy leader, you'd obviously be serving that position alongside one of the other candidates. So, if that happens, how would you work with the other candidates, despite the fact that you may have different ideological beliefs or you may have different views on policy and strategy? How would you ensure that you were able to work together to succeed in your role as deputy leader?
Well, I mean, we may well differ on policy or ideology or whatever, but our core aim is to get more Greens elected.
Mhm,
I think that's true across all of the leadership and deputy leader candidates. We may disagree on how that's done, but we are kind of thought to be a broad tent, and I think we do have a good idea on how to win local elections. We have the Target to Win program,
mhm,
which we've used very effectively in Worcester, and we can all share what our experiences are. Parties who need help with implementing Target to Win and have questions about do that. If
mhm,
I'm here to support them and help with that, and if other candidates or the other members of the leadership have different skills, like Zach is extremely good at working a room and motivating people, then he can bring that to the room as well. So I'm
mhm.
sure we can all work together and trade on each other's strengths.
You talk about target to win there as well, and like you allude to, it's been successful in your area. Hugely successful campaign program. It's seen us with over 850 councillors up and down the country, 4 MPs now in the House of Commons. I think we're the only political party in the UK to have 8 years in a row of constant success and
Mhm.
gaining seats rather than losing them. Um, do you think that target to win on its own is enough of a strategy to move forward with as a party, or do you think there's room to see the campaign strategies grow, change, and whether it's something new alongside Target to Win, or a complete sort of revival of how we campaign? How do you think we need to move forward with campaigning?
I mean, I don't think yet that we've reached the limits of what Target Can Win can deliver us. I know we have a lot of conversations in the Greens about um, getting better coverage in the media, and better coverage on social media, and that kind of item, which we can definitely improve on. The cautionary note I would always say with that is the media in this country is not interested in platforming green voices. If anything, they're very interested in denigrating green voices and setting up culture wars. So I don't think
Hmm.
it's very difficult to get a fair shake for the Green Party through traditional media. And social media can be very similar as well in that it trades in engagement and showing somebody who's saying, oh, I think we should put solar panels on a building. They will naturally, the algorithm will show it to somebody who will froth at the mouth at the very idea of a solar panel. So I think with the way we cut through that is target to win. So
Hmm.
the simple cadence of regularly giving people newsletters and updating them about what's going on. That's the way we can get our message out to people across the country, and it's a way that we can control. It's very difficult to scale that up to a huge scale very quickly because simply you need to find people to actually deliver your newsletters, to write your newsletters, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it's a very people heavy um, thing. But I think we don't have the resources and the backing of fossil fuel companies like Reform has, who can afford to do what they did in our May elections and they did across the country, which is send letters through the post to people that don't even have candidates' names on them. That's what we're up against, and Target to Win is still effective against those areas. In
Hmm.
Worcester, everywhere the Green Party campaign, Reform didn't win a seat. They won 3 seats in Worcester, and we didn't run campaigns in those areas. So I think Target to Win particularly can be effective against Reform because Reform do well in areas where there aren't people coming to the doorstep. People feel like no one cares, and
Hmm.
the leaflet coming through the door with easy answers on it is the one that then gets people's votes. So I'm skeptical of suggestions that we can replicate their success through populist rhetoric, simply because that it won't get reported in a fair and balanced fashion. And Target to Win is where we need to double down because we can get our message out that resonates with people much more effectively in that way.
Hmm. Do you think there's a need to balance that with a sort of a more wider push on social media? I've got a question from Leo from TikTok, who's asked, in an age where online communications is so integral, what's your aim for social media campaigns and how will you achieve these? And I think a lot of people have asked similar questions, that even though the ground game, which I suppose Target to Win's really good at covering, is integral to reaching those voters on the ground. Um, do you think there's a need for a wider messaging on social media as well? And what would you do in relation to that?
I think there's certainly an opportunity to do a lot better on social media. I think people who are good at engaging that stuff, like I'll give props to Frank Adlington Stringer, who you may have already spoken to. He's
Hmm.
extremely good on social media and does a very good job of presenting the Greens on there. Zach's very good at social media as well. So I think those people who can do a lot better for us in that area. I as being a white man in my 40s, I fear if I got involved in doing like TikTok stuff, I'd look like Ed Davey doing silly dances on TikTok, which I'm perfectly happy to do if that's
Yeah.
what the stats
Well,
show
I mean,
that
they've got
I
70 odd seats now, the Lib Dems.
Well,
So
yeah, but again, I don't think that's built on social media. I think that's built on effective ground game in councils.
yeah, no, that's fair. Um, You mentioned reform. Um, I want to ask you about reform. So back in April, Adrian Ramsey, obviously current co-leader, running again for re-election alongside Ellie Chowns, he took to Twitter to say that, like the BNP and UKIP, Reform UK will disappear once voters realise what they really stand for.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with him?
Um, so I think the difference with reform versus the BNP and UKIP is um, the Tory party is in a lot worse state now than it was then against those parties,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of money pouring into reform, which gives them a lot of ability to speak to people. So I think there's definitely a possibility that they could not necessarily disappear, but fall back from their highs now. I mean, in Worcester, there's a reform councillor who was elected in May, who lives in Chesterfield, which is
Okay.
nowhere near Worcester. We had a council meeting today where a county council meeting today where one of the items was building a school and possibly housing in his area. He didn't turn up. Didn't come to speak to his residents. We've had the first cabinet meeting of the Worcester County Council since reform. They have a minority administration in Worcester. They had one item on the agenda. The cabinet member responsible for it didn't turn up. It took the last whole meeting lasted 20 minutes, and they didn't answer any questions. The cabinet member for environment last week at full council was asked a question by the leader of the Green and Independent group. Do you
Mhm.
believe scientists about human activity being responsible for climate change? And he couldn't answer the question. And then he's not turned up at the environment scrutiny meeting since. So, they're not electing good, hardworking councillors for their areas. So, I think certainly on a local level, it would be easy to campaign and saying, these are people, cabinet members, not turning up the meetings. They're getting paid £30,000 a year. People should rightly be very angry about that, and I think we can defeat those people locally. I don't think reform itself is necessarily going to disappear, but those local stories are really where they're going to struggle because they're not authentic. They're not doing the hard work. They're not in their communities like green councillors are.
Mhm.
If they disappear or not, I prefer if they did disappear.
I
But
think we all would.
I think we have the strategies to beat them, and so we'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, brilliant. And on the sort of the rise of the far right, another TikTok question from an account called Electric Fairy. They've said, given that right wing parties like to use English culture and quotes Englishness to justify their racism and xenophobia, how can we find a new way to engage with English culture and our cultural heritage while still condemning the racism, the xenophobia, and the other harmful beliefs?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, there's plenty to be proud of, in English culture. The idea of like Wimbledon and strawberries and cream every summer. The love
Hmm.
of sport and fair play. I mean, there's a reason why the hand of God is such a famous thing in this country because it. It's a long running grievance about the idea that somebody cheated to get ahead, and celebrating those kind of things, that idea of fairness, of the I mean, like cricket. Cricket's another a great example where there's a lot of gentlemen's rules, and if somebody says, "Well, I bowled you out," then you believe them. Those are all
Yeah.
things that we can rightly be proud of and build, I think, strong societies on. And going back to the earlier question about, most people in this country really care about their neighbour and think that people should be treated with respect, and that is a core English quality. The English quality is not looking at the flag or saying we support our veterans and then not doing anything to help them, or the idea that Margaret Thatcher's the great the great totemic prime minister that we should all be looking up to. These are We should rightly be proud that we had a strong woman as our prime minister, but we can condemn everything she did before that. The same with Winston Churchill, that we can say Winston Churchill was a great wartime prime minister, but he did gas the Kurds, which we did condemn Saddam Hussein for as well. So there's
Hmm.
there's a lot to be proud of, but also looking back at our history and thinking these are the things we need to do better on, and
Yeah.
understanding that as well.
We've had a question from Alexander Louis Salons on
Thank-
Twitter, at Salons Sachs. The Green Party has failed to update our constitution substantially over the past 15 years. In that time, we've gone from a party of 1,000 to 65,000. How will you use your position to make the Green Party fit for the future?
That's a good question. So the the one of the things that I've talked a bit about with in during this election is I would support having like citizens' assemblies to write a written constitution for the UK, and I think we can definitely do something like that at the party level as well. If anything, to demonstrate this is how it's done. Um,
Mhm.
I think there's certainly a lot of merit in the things people talk about our policy making is quite um, uh, bureaucratic. And probably similar on the constitution as well. So, the
I'm just
constitution,
sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. Answer that. I'm just thinking anyone that's sat through a debating conference when we're deciding whether or not we should approve a manifesto that's already been approved, and
Mhm.
then spending an entire day voting on policy and procedure before we even get to the actual policy,
Yeah,
will know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, and I think I was talking to somebody literally yesterday about that there's apparently one Green Party member who I don't know who it is, so I'm not calling them out, but who's very particular that a horse should be considered a sustainable form of transport. Which, if anyone's watched any other interviews with me, you'll know I keep mentioning sustainable horses. Um, but this person who's particularly dedicated to making sure that is in our policy platform, which it's a reasonable thing, but it shows an example of how hard it can be sometimes to get an agreement that this thing keeps reappearing in there. So
Mm,
certainly, we should look at ways we can make the party more democratic and more streamlined as part of the constitution, but also that we try and avoid the things that like the Labour Party have, where they're in theory a democratic party, but in the end, policy is largely determined by a very small group. And if you're a member of the Labour Party, you just essentially have to lump it.
Recent polling shows that a as of yet to be formed political party led by Corbyn and Zara Sultana could see that party could see themselves receiving the same percentage of the vote share as the Labour Party, whilst also taking some votes away from the Greens. What do you think it says about the Green Party in its current state that so many people, and we're talking about 100,000 people now that have signed up to Zara Sultana's call to action, who feel that they really desperately want a party on the left that they can get behind and they can support and they can campaign for, but who clearly don't feel that that party is the Green Party?
Mm-hmm. Um, So I'm not sure it says anything particular about the left. I think what it really says is there are hundreds of thousands of people in this country who feel like nobody speaks for them,
Mhm.
and they're looking for anyone who can have an answer. So the reason I say I don't think this is a problem with the left is because literally down the road from me, and this is repeated across Worcester and across the country. There was somebody who had a vote Labour poster in their window for the general election last year, and they left it up after the general election. It was there for months and months until April, when it was replaced by a Reform poster.
All right.
Um, and we know that when we're talking on the doorstep, I mean, when I talk to people on the doorstep, when I say I'm from the Green Party, people literally generally light up because they
Mhm.
know that we are the only party that comes to the door, and we're the only ones who bother. And I think that's why people vote for the Greens, and that works for whether you're left or right. Actually, doing the work and talking to people is what's really important to getting votes.
Yeah.
So, this rumored party for Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, I can well understand that people, when they're asked in polling, like, would you consider voting for this party? And they voted for the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn because it had a really progressive platform and it
Mhm.
promised it was going to fix a lot of things. Um, and it felt like he was actually somebody who's going to stand up for them. A lot of those people also feel like that Nigel Farage stands up for them, even though most people in the know that he's a charlatan. But they're seeing simplistic answers, and the things that all those things share in common is, I think, uh, is a populism that there are simple answers to our problems, and the thing where we succeed is where we have activists and we are talking to people on the doorstep. So I'm not sure it's a something we need to worry about for the Green Party.
Do you think we can do more to win some of those voters round, though? Because clearly, the fact that nearly 100,000 of them have signed up to a call to action for a party that doesn't yet exist, that makes me worry that maybe we're not being clear enough in our messaging. Because I can't understand why they're going to something that's not yet even in existence, rather than seeing that actually there already is an alternative on the left. There already is a party on the left that is offering socialist values, that is offering, the values and the hope that they want, and it's
Yeah,
here in the Green Party.
yeah. I mean, there's lots of areas around around the country that don't have very big green presence is at the moment. And I think that's one of the vital things the National Party needs to do better on. Is
Hmm.
we know that direct asks to people is really effective to getting involved. Is that we need to be reaching out to our existing members and saying, I mean, I joined the Worcester Green Party well after this, but Worcester Green Party was originally like three people in a room, and now we're the second biggest group on the council and won the popular vote in local elections for 3 years running. We
Yeah.
need to engage those people so they're getting started and talk to people on the doorstep. Because going back to my earlier point, the Jeremy Corbyn has been leader of the opposition, has a very big recognition name. I'm not sure how many people knew him before he became leader of the opposition, um, and that's not a problem of his social media game or his engagement with getting well known locally. It's just you naturally have a name when you are leader of the opposition. You get a lot of coverage, and there
Hmm.
was a lot of coverage of Jeremy Corbyn, so he is well known. And and we're not. In some ways, I don't want to have the attention that Corbyn has, because there was a lot of talk about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party,
Hmm.
and I mean, it was bad enough when Ed Miliband ate a bacon sandwich, but the policies that was in the 2019 general election manifesto for Labour, the media was absolutely dead set against many of those things, and they shouted it very, very loudly, which gives Jeremy Corbyn a profile, and that's probably why
Hmm.
Zara Sultana wants him to have him involved in the party. But I mean, how old is Jeremy Corbyn now? Is he going to be going around doing, large scale rallies across the country? I'm not sure that's what's going to happen. So, in terms of our positioning and how we respond to that, we need to double down on what we're successful at, which is engaging people and saying, look, this is target to win. This is how you do it, and so that we can talk to those people on the doorstep and get our messages out. Um, Without the help of media or social
Hmm.
media. I mean, those are definitely helpful for engaging people locally, but it's about building those parties that can deliver election wins in the councils, and that's what the Liberal Democrats have built a lot of their success on. I don't think it's a lot of Ed Davey falling off a canoe.
Hmm.
It's because they've spoken to people and engaged them and got those votes out. Because their vote share went down in the general election last time, and
Hmm.
they've still got their record number of
A
seats.
record number of seats.
Yeah.
Yeah. On you've talked a bit there about um, media and scrutiny from the media. With a position like a deputy leader of a big political party comes a massive increase in media scrutiny, whether it's in the papers, whether it's the mainstream television broadcasters, whether it's normal members of the public all over social media. Um, are you prepared for the levels of scrutiny that will come with this position if you're elected, and how will you ensure that no amount of media scrutiny turns into a distraction from you actually carrying out the job?
Um, I mean, think it'll be very difficult to be fully prepared on that, because there's being co-leader of the Green Group locally. Most of the time I go out and people have no idea who I am. The time
Mhm.
when I knock on the doorstep, even in my area where I've been elected with a decent amount of the vote, people ask me like, "Where's my predecessor?" rather than me. Um, so it'd be interesting. I don't think I've got any um, things that I feel like I would be unfairly well. There will be things that will be unfairly portrayed, because that's the natural nature of being a Green Party person. They'll say like
Yeah,
we want to ban everyone from having meat, all that kind of stuff, which is not our policy, but that's what people will say. So
yeah.
that kind of stuff is like water off a duck's back. If I feel like it's people are just telling lies, then they'll be telling lies. But yeah, well,
Someone's going to clip that already now and just say, Alex Mace says that we want to stop everyone from having meat.
yeah.
So,
Well, we did have like international attention on Worcester because we had a Green Party mayor, and uh, after every council meeting, which is like 6 a year, the mayor puts on some food for all the councillors, and while we had a Green mayor, it was all plant based. We had a then Tory, now Reform councillor who raised that it was discriminatory that he couldn't have a ham sandwich. And
okay.
that literally made international news. So
Yeah.
these things do happen already.
If elected, are you going to follow in sort of Zach's footsteps? Are you going to tour the country, see members of the public and Green Party, local Green parties up and down the country? Are you going to put yourself out on the media more? Things like Question Time or Jeremy Vine, etc. If you get invited on.
Yeah, I'd love to have a chat with Jeremy Vine about reporting videos to the police about illegal driving. But yeah, I mean that would be the plan. I think we've had Zach visit us multiple times in Worcester, and it's even if the first time I met Zach I wasn't very familiar with him, but there's a frisson or an excitement to having the leader or deputy leader of the National Party come to your area and literally just talk to you or get involved in campaigning, because
Mhm.
it makes you feel like the whole country or the whole party is behind you and wishing you the greatest success. So yeah, I think that's absolutely part of what the leadership is, because we're not setting policy. We can certainly advocate for policy change, but we're there to support all the membership and making them success.
Yeah.
My day job, what I like to say is I like to be a servant leader. Like, if you've got a problem that needs solving, come to me and I will help you solve it.
Yeah. And you talk about policy. I appreciate that it is, and I'm grateful that it is the democratic process of the Green Party that policy is decided and ultimately set by the membership. In a hypothetical world, if you could change any part of the Green Party policy, whether it be get rid of something, whether it be add something in new, whether it be just to tweak something that's already there, what would that be and why?
I mean, having read through the manifesto last year, there wasn't actually really anything I disagreed on, like, strongly. The one that I used to get asked on, like, what the Green Party policy disagree, it used to be that about HS2, that I thought we should complete it, because if you look at France, where they banned flights and where you can get an equivalent train, for where it's under 2.5 hours, I think that's a really big climate win.
Mm.
And although there's reasons to look into why HS2 has been so expensive in this country. That's why we need to complete it. I guess I would continue. I think it would be a huge mistake to repeat what we did with the Channel Tunnel Rail Link, or HS1, um, and then leave it like a decade, and then try and build another high speed line. And we've lost all the expertise. I think it would be a mistake to finish HS2 to Birmingham and then give up on doing any more high speed rail.
Mhm.
I think I saw a stat that Switzerland has the most dense rail network in Europe. And Switzerland, you probably know, is quite hilly and probably doesn't have very
Mhm.
nice geography for building rail lines. But that kind of stuff, where we need to build, not just finish HS2, but build more high speed rail so we can move people around the country in a low carbon manner, I think is absolutely vital. Because I know on the
Mhm.
doorstep people have said to me, "Oh, I can't vote Green because you're not very good on infrastructure," which is quite a rare piece of feedback, that people are actually
Yeah.
bothered about that. But it's a fair criticism that when
Mhm.
people might just think we're about don't build anything, whereas I think we do need to um, invest in infrastructure where it's going to make a significant difference to reduce our carbon output, and still
Mhm.
allow people to minimise the um, adjustments they need to make in their lives to fight the climate emergency.
And you do that under a nationalised railway?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, you just have to look across the channel in France. I think I was looking to go to Barcelona next summer,
Mhm.
and you can get a TGV. It's like 7 hours from Paris to Barcelona, and it's if you get the right card, you can get it for like €79, which is it's just bananas compared to what we pay in this country, and that's a nationalised industry. And I think I always it's there's another thing where I think when it's explained to people about nationalisation, that most British people will actually support nationalisation of most of our utilities. I mean, we have a ridiculous situation at the moment where we are paying the French state energy company to build a nuclear power station. And do you think they're building that out of their goodness of the hearts, or because they're going to make a profit out of us? So we are essentially subsidising other countries' state utilities to build stuff in our country. It's like, well, why? Well, we should just have our own state utilities that do that. Like
Yeah.
um, public transport is an excellent example that. Because we have stupid rules in this country that every route of a bus has to be profitable. That's ridiculous. We need to be able to move people from where they are to where they need to go, not just places that it's going to be profitable. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's have state-owned, public transport, social, anything that's a social good
Mm-hmm.
that needs long-term investment. Let's have it owned by the state.
Brilliant. And finally, I'm based in the north. I'm in the northwest, and there's a bit of a preconception about the Green Party being quite sort of south based.
Mm-hmm.
We've got four fairly southern MPs. We've got a lot of the target areas are also in the south. So, what commitments will you make as deputy leader to reignite the Green Party within the north of England? And would you want to see a target seat in the north in the next general election?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ellie said this, and I'm sure Zach said the same thing as well. That we want target seats in every region across the country. I'm very proud, although I'm in Worcester, and when I went to university in Nottingham, I thought, well, I'm in the north now. But having then driven up to the north, I was clearly not. I was very proud that my grandmother was born in South Shields, and it's a brilliant part of the country. And Labour have always done very well there. And I can't imagine that they are very pleased with the Labour government and their support for the North at the moment. So
Mhm.
we can absolutely do well there, like we can anywhere. We just need to get people started, get people knocking on doors, delivering newsletters, and we can succeed anywhere. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to see some Green MPs in the North.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I'm only ending it there because of time, but we really, really appreciate you giving up your time today. If anyone wants to know more about you, if they want to hear more about your campaign, how do people find you?
The best place for me is to go on Facebook and search for Councillor Alex Mace. That's where I post all my political stuff to keep it all nice and easy. So yeah, that's the place to go. Give my page a follow, and you'll see what I'm up to.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for your time. Like I say, we really appreciate it. Genuinely, all the best with the campaigning and with the election. And as you say, break a leg.
Well, thank you very much. I'll try not to do that because I've never broken a bone yet. But yeah, I take the point. Thank you.
Fingers
Thank you
crossed.
very much for your time, Callum.
Thank you. Take care now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.